works, yeah. There you go.
Because we're going to need it for the next one.
Is it time? It's no.
Okay, I'm gonna go.
Okay, all right. Okay,
glad I
thank
could
you.
be here.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely, thank you for the invitation. What is it?
Oh no, I was asking him.
Oh, okay. Okay, everyone, it's 1 o'clock. Ian is ready to get started, so please take your seats. Ian is going to be presenting industry partnerships. Yes, either Carissa or Katie's going to hold up a 5-minute.
Oh, great.
Before the presentation's done, and then when it's Q&A, another 5 minutes before it's
I am so glad to hear that Carissa or somebody else is holding up the 5-minute warning sign. That was making me nervous. So good afternoon, right after lunch. Some of you, I just remember visually were at the session yesterday. Just want to thank Amanda, Greg, who's not here, a lot of the other deans we work with, but Amanda, Greg specifically for those industry partners and my team for that. That was, I think, indicative of the end result of a very laborious process. So the title of this is Industry Partnerships. You're either at the table or on the menu, and then I added sometimes it's neither. Sometimes you're just in the cold. So you're either at the table, on the menu, or in the cold. Chancellor and some others talked about our demographics. I added this slide in just last minute to talk briefly about it because it really hones in on one of the key challenges that we are dealing with as a college and that our workforce teams have to deal with as well with respect to the focus points of a center of excellence being beyond just certificates and degrees. And I know we've spent a lot of time talking about that, but I was asked in this presentation to talk about industry partnerships, identify challenges we had in implementing those, what we did to address those challenges, and then the end result. So that's what I will focus on mostly. This is some context. How many of you have seen a population pyramid since your high school geography class? I used to teach high school geography at one point. A population pyramid tells you more about your community in one visual than potentially anything else. There's some cool GIS mapping that can tell you a lot as well. This is Census 2010. Another official one will come out shortly, but all of the community surveys show that this population, which is really not a pyramid, but it's called a population pyramid for our county, looks the same now as this one and will look this way for quite some time. This is the birth dearth in action. This is identified male. Whoa. The blue is identified male. The reds, pinks, identified female per the census. And then the vertical axis up in 5s, but every point is 1 year. So it tells you in your county how many 1-year-olds you have, how many 2-year-olds you have, how many 3-year-olds. This is the Latinx identified or Hispanic identified population for Pima County. So as you can see, this is the future. This is what it looks like now, even though it's 2010. So what we already saw back then was a diminishing of the number of 1-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds in our community. So as they work their way up now to the high school graduation that the chancellor talked about, that's what's hitting us, roughly now. When you look at war-torn countries, what you'll see huge indentations on male-identified populations. So if you look at this for, say, Afghanistan, or like currently, it'd be interesting to see this for Yemen. It really tells you a lot about what's going on. What do you think is happening in our community here at 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23 years old? Our population all of a sudden grows really quickly, and then all of a sudden shrinks again. What's going on there? This is the U of A population growth. Most of the U of A graduates do not remain, and then we have another very troubling from a workforce and economic development perspective pattern emerging, a rapid decrease of the professional age population up until about 45. And that's not a healthy dynamic in terms of workforce economic development. And then we jump back out again at over 45, 50, 60, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so that is because we are, as you know, a retirement destination. So, from a workforce development perspective, but also from a sustainability perspective for the institution, this is our enrollment base, and this is also our workforce base for our employers. And so I'll come back to that. Any questions about the population pyramid? How many of you have ever seen a population pyramid before? Okay. Any questions about ours? Even at the Latinx population, there is a bit of a birth dearth. So Bill talked about this, some others talked about this. I was asked to identify our particular challenge. So when we came to Pima Community College about 3 years, 8 months ago, and industry partnerships is a primary focus of workforce development. It is at many community colleges, most community colleges. But what I quickly learned was that at workforce development at Pima Community College was a specific unit at a specific campus with a specific function of contract training. That's the challenge. So we had an entire ecosystem, an entire structure, entire organization that equated workforce development and industry partnerships with one function of contract training. So that's Program Z at Campus 6. Industry partnerships occur there and in the context of revenue generation alone. And so the challenge was, this is one challenge, how do we organize and look at the Ed Master Plan and the Centers of Excellence and help industry partnerships be a core function of all programs of study at the college. And we'll talk about some of that today in key examples. The second was reputation. And I had my first external meeting within about 3 weeks of being at Pima Community College, and it was with Raytheon. The gentleman who was at our board meeting yesterday was Alan Couture, who is the Vice President of Operations for Raytheon Missile Systems. He reports to Taylor Lawrence. Taylor Lawrence is the President and CEO of Raytheon Missile Systems. There are two other vice presidents at Raytheon. Some of you know one, Alan Reed, and then the other one is new. The new CFO I do not know yet, but we are well acquainted with Greg White, the former CFO, who still remains in the community. Those three VPs are essentially the ELT of Raytheon Missile Systems. So Alan Couture oversees essentially the operations of all 12,000 employees at Raytheon Missile Systems. The person who reports to him, who was there yesterday, who is my main point of contact, I interact a little with Alan, but my main point of contact is Leah Standridge. She is the strategic development person for Raytheon Missile Systems, so she's their NIC. But a lot of her work focuses on the development of their workforce and community partnerships. That person was the person who met with me, and it wasn't Leah Standridge 3.5 years ago. And in my office, what the person said was, glad you're here, glad you called this meeting, Ian, because I thought, okay, I'm in Tucson, largest private employer, Raytheon, let's have a conversation to see how well we're connected with Raytheon. And what I was told was, if you keep doing X, if you keep connecting us with Y, we will never work with you again. We are about ready to walk away from Pima Community College. I relayed that to them, my former supervisor, who's no longer here, Lorraine, and the chancellor. And since that time, now, at multiple levels, we have lots of team members engaged with Raytheon in many different areas, and you'll see some of the results of that. So the question is how do you get there, and why does it matter? It matters significantly because with the Centers of Excellence being central to reaching out to business and industry in the community, reputation matters so very much, because what it speaks to is whether or not the person they're talking to in the room has the credibility to implement what they need and what they want from their community college. And the number one piece of feedback that I received for about the first year is that this isn't working. It's not working. We don't know who to talk to. What do we do about, I don't want to target certain programs, but the diffused programs. What do we do about program, we need it. It's Program A. Program A is at 3 different campuses, and they don't align with each other. They don't talk to each other. They don't work with each other. Our students, our employees that we send get lost in this mix. And so moving to this was a much better paradigm with respect to business and industry. And I'm talking a lot about business and industry. The chancellor in previous communications has identified 4 customers. Those aren't our only partners, but our 4 customers: students first, business and industry, is what my team and I wake up each and every single day thinking about is how can we serve business and industry better? It's not that we don't care about students, but it's industry-driven, student-focused, because it's business and industry who serves as the predominant tax base, and it's business and industry who creates and provides the majority of the jobs that our students will be going into. And when we get very successful at serving business and industry, it's business and industry through our capital campaign that will reinvest more back into the college for sustainability than they currently are, and that we're starting to see some inroads with. And so the Centers of Excellence paradigm just fits so well because it's led by the industry. These bubbles weren't mine. These are just my brief tidbits from the Ed Master Plan. So actually the definition of a Centers of Excellence and all the components of it comes from our Educational Master Plan. And it led with, it's really got to be about industry standards and then thought leadership. The thought leadership is something that we've actually added, and that is in Pima County, Southern Arizona, we learned that many of the best practices in the industry, including with workforce development, probably lag in some cases by about a decade as compared to other major markets. So 1 million metropolitan areas and above. And so we have partnered with groups like Advanced Robotics Manufacturing, Inc. to bring some of those practices to our employers. And we recently held a summit at the downtown campus with ARM where many of the manufacturers came up to us afterwards and said, wow, thanks so much. That was so valuable to our business and thinking about those things. We didn't actually fill a skilled trade technician need that day. But what those industry partners saw was that their community college was coming forward with ideas and things that helped them with their business practices. And so that's the industry standards and thought leadership. It's also about the partnerships, including with business and industry and our community partners. We have a rich history in Tucson and Southern Arizona of our community partners. And I don't want to list them all for fear of leaving out one, but they're just many, diverse, and very helpful to our students. Comprehensive workforce development and the training to degree to CEU spectrum is that challenge. And it was sort of like, and it's not really unique to Pima, it's actually pretty widespread, but many community colleges really like to approach CTE and workforce programs in a very binary fashion, just like we do with academics. We say it's formerly occupational or academic. Why can't it be both? It really is. We say it's non-credit or credit, and there's a Berlin Wall between them. We say it's time-based or competency-based. We say that it's work-based learning or college learning. And so what we have here at the college is the 10-20-30 world, and then all of the other systems and processes that are outside of that. And yet most of our students, 2/3, I believe, are still part-time. And as Alan Couture said at the board meeting last night, most of our people that we want to send to you are on shifts that do not match your class schedule. How are you organizing in a way to meet those needs? And so a comprehensive workforce development approach means that the definition or the essence of a program of study is not only those 7 areas that Nina identified and then their underlying certificates, but it's also about what are faculty and staff in each one of those areas doing with respect to industry partners? And that's where I'll dwell for a second. What are we doing with work-based learning? What are we doing with learning about the depths of the industry and how we can implement technologies into our programs? So for me personally, it's my job to interface well with business and industry on a daily basis. When I meet with a business partner, I want them to know they have an advocate and an ally bringing back the perspective of business and industry to the college. But that's my job, and if I don't do that well, that's a bad thing. But that really doesn't systematically change how the college does business with business and industry. And so when you move towards a Center of Excellence paradigm, where non-credit workforce training is meeting the very specific need at an aggregate level of a business partner, and it's not a certificate or a degree program, and it's the faculty that worked with that business partner to make that change, that's very different and the very awesome next step of me just having a good relationship with those corporate partners. But that handoff has to occur, and it has to occur with willing partners who understand the full context of why that work is important. And that is increasing rapidly like a hockey stick all across the college, which is why we were able to have conversations like we did yesterday. So some tenets that we bring with respect to business and industry, and I'm not going to go through the whole advisory committee reform initiative. That's a whole other presentation, and many of you have seen it and have been a part of implementing that. Thank you to all of the deans for working with our team on implementing the new advisory committee regimen. But I've led with that line on that presentation. It's about how we do business with business. We are either at the table or on the menu or in the cold. The first thing I learned is that many business partners didn't know about all the great things we already did, simply because nobody was really just talking to them and bringing them back to the college with those right connection points. A lot of the battle really with our reputation was just getting people aware of what we already had at the table already and some of the great things that were already occurring. And there were a lot of great things that were already occurring. One of those that you've heard about was with Cade Industries. So Cade Industries was not recruiting from Pima for welding or sending people to training for welding. They were going to Northland Pioneer. But it was because of the work of Denise Kingman, Mary Ricardo, who's now in adult ed, and others that made that connection with Cade Industries to our students, and they saw the quality, and now there's internships, hiring, and now they're sending people for training at Pima Community College. Nothing fundamentally changed about the welding program to make that happen at that time. They just weren't aware, and they had a perception. One of these is perception and reputation lag reality. They had a perception of something that happened like a decade ago. And oftentimes it's just reintroducing people to offset. When opportunity knocks, answer. So we don't chase every opportunity that comes up. We have to be very discerning and very purpose-driven. But at the same time, there's a lot of neat and interesting ideas there. So while we rarely to an industry partner just say no. And I know that some people, that means we're out there doing too many things all at once and too many irons in the fire. What it means is maybe, yes, or maybe. That's an interesting idea, and sometimes we have to put those development ideas on a shelf for a little bit until we have the systems that are able and mature enough to handle that. But if we tell too many industry partners no, we'll never be able to do that. That sends the wrong message from their community college. The other thing is never getting ahead of our supply line. So it's very crucial that I know where David's thinking is with respect, right, to as my supervisor, to all of the different centers of excellence and all of those programs, and working more with the deans on that. It's very crucial to understand that, because it oftentimes, not just myself, but many members of our team, meetings just happen. You're at an event, and the CEO of a company says, guess what? I'd like to go to lunch with you and learn more about what you're doing at Pima Community College. And that happens. So if I'm sitting with a C-level person and David's not there, I have to be very judicious in what I'm saying, promising, we have to be in sync, and it's the whole college has to be in sync, because otherwise we get ahead of our supply line, and that becomes a credibility issue with respect to business and industry. Like nation states, I'm a foreign policy geek. So when you say like a nation, nations have characteristics, oftentimes based on a combination of their culture, their government, their history, all of these different things. Companies, business and industry is not monolithic. So a lot of the times I myself am guilty of saying, well, business and industry says. A common one that we hear is, well, Raytheon says. So I live in Oro Valley, and half of my cul-de-sacs like Raytheon. So if I'm having a conversation with my neighbor, it doesn't mean Raytheon says. The right question is whom at Raytheon said, and what did they say? And so sometimes we have to drill down a little bit more, because if it's my neighbor who is an engineer at Raytheon, that has he gives me some insight, but Alan Couture, that gives me the signal of where the business is headed. So what we have to recognize is that they have a character, and we as a college have a character. We have a culture as a college, and that culture and that character communicates every time we walk in with our 50 pins or this, and so that matters. So some do's and don'ts. One of the things that we're working through and with is be industry-driven and student-centered. Sometimes in higher education, there's a debate about if you're too industry-driven, that means you're not focusing on students, or you're not giving them choices or helping them experience themselves. Most of our students are going to change not just jobs, but careers multiple times. And so being industry-driven and student-centered are not, they're not antithetical. Listen a lot, respond quickly, and serve. And that's really, I think yesterday the remark that we got from one of the individuals, Robert Brown from Too Simple, said, We've heard that working with community colleges is painful and slow because you're bureaucratic and you're set in your ways. And what he said about Pima is you are the exact opposite. I think that was the best compliment that we've received from business and industry, and it was so heartwarming. A part of it is we have to make every interaction valuable for industry. So with respect to advisory committees, we're pulling business and industry partners from their jobs, from their responsibilities, and we're asking them for things. And so I know that we've made a lot of changes in the guidebook and in the AP that's going to the board for, not approval, for review. But we've made a lot of changes to those practices, but they were very intentional. Because most of the academic year, we have plenty of opportunities for feedback for faculty and staff. I got to be at Faculty Senate the other day and talk about non-credit, and that was an excellent example of how we give our faculty a lot of ownership over things. There are 2 times a year, formally, not informally, but formally, where we can gather and document the industry's input into our programs of study directly. And those are very valuable times. And so we have to spend a lot of time building relationships between those 2 goalposts of the Fall Advisory Committee and the Spring Advisory Committee so that those meetings are purposeful and valuable for our industry partners. And the commitments that we make, we have to make sure that we follow up on. And so the next meeting, you said why in the last meeting, and guess what we're delivering, and here's how we're meeting that. That means so much to them. When they feel like they can give us input and then we honor it, that adds value. The other thing is, I've learned this the hard way, is do not justify why we can or cannot do certain things for business and industry, which is the case. There are some things we cannot do, but don't justify it from an education perspective. The more we say HLC, no offense, Bruce, but the more we say HLC, the more we say Title IV, the more we say this, the more they push back. And we can't ignore those things, and so it's how we frame it and how we explain it, but it's a very important thing as we move forward with teaching the college how to do business with business. Don't overpromise. Always be aspirational, but don't overpromise. That's a hard line sometimes, or a difficult line to follow. And then the other thing is that we always represent Pima Community College. It still happens occasionally, but not as much. But for about the first year I was here, it seemed like everybody I met with wanted to goad me into saying something negative about the college. And it was just, it was really telling. And so it was, it would be so easy to fall into that trap and say, well, yeah, or this, or the prior chancellor, or this or that. And all that does is sort of reinforce those messages. So it's a matter of saying, yeah, that's really something we could do better. Tell me about how you would like for us to do that. Or that's something we're working on, and using those as opportunities to tell the story about how we're doing better as their community college for business and industry is something we work very hard at on the workforce team, and something that has been, I think has been valuable. Just some tangible results. You probably can't read that, but this is the Raytheon story. So the Raytheon interaction I started with, and it was a very stark conversation, and it was very troubling. Because if, as the community college, we have lost the confidence of our largest private employer, who hires at every skill level imaginable, from high school graduates all the way up to PhDs, then we have a credibility problem with industry as a whole. So now, Greg Wilson and his faculty are engaged in putting together the IRAP model. The workforce team and Amanda and those folks are engaged with them on the community development side about tuition reimbursement, tightening up that model. And we're able to meet at the strategic level, so with my contact, about how are we going to be having Raytheon be a part of the Centers of Excellence. I don't want to get too far ahead of that because I don't like counting the eggs before they hatch, the saying, but there bodes to be a lot of promise. One of those came with respect to a Department of Labor RFP that came out, and that was about implementing a new form of apprenticeship, not registered apprenticeships, but industry-recognized apprenticeships. And we've been working with Raytheon on that model for over a year. Pima was asked by 3 colleges at Maricopa, Central Arizona College, and ourselves. We're a part of a consortium to lead the grant application, and then we were also approached by the National Institute of Metalworking Skills to lead that application as a consortium. That grant requires a 35 to a 50% match. And the only way and this is a $4 million proposal. So the only way that that can happen is through tuition reimbursement and people making definitive commitments, and DOL required the letter. The letter that we got from operations at Raytheon said that over the course of 4 years, we're going to send you an additional 1,000 students for this training. Now, that's dependent on this funding coming through, so whether that comes through or not, we've got the letter, we know the need, and so we'll be reapproaching that again through tuition reimbursement, work-based learning, and some other models that we'll be working with primarily Jim, Greg, and Amanda on. The other one was the Applied Technology Academy with Caterpillar, and they have, this was an awesome opportunity for the workforce team, for faculty. So Ken Bice and Mark Backus came together and really met that need for industry, so much so that we're already developing the second level academy for Caterpillar, and that's in metallurgy and prototyping. And then what these are, open enrollment for other companies as well. So Caterpillar has a right of first refusal on the first 200 to 300 seats for the Applied Technology Academy. And then now we're trying to find when we're going to offer the prototyping and metallurgy. And then Too Simple has said we want the same sort of thing for our software developers so they can learn the mechanics of the vehicle. And it's starting to cascade from there throughout the supply chain with some small businesses. This is why Centers of Excellence is important. We've hit a bottleneck. We can't run all of those training sessions. We can add like 1 or 2 more, and then we're maxed out at the current downtown campus facilities. But yet this upskilling as a part of that circle is the future for the sustainability with respect for workforce development and training. And then finally with Too Simple, that was a really fun day. But more importantly, they came to us with a challenge. Can you really work with us to develop a training program that's going to prepare truck drivers for the day our technology potentially displaces them? And so Missy Blair and other members of the team, faculty, Chris, others are meeting. Will, I think you're in those meetings too, are really working with Too Simple to develop that really innovative program of study. There are other examples, and there are often partnerships all across the college. But with respect to scalability, defining sectors for the community, we really have made a term. But that future success on that is really going to depend on that larger aspect of how well do we all do business with respect to industry partnerships. And with that, do you have any questions? Comments? Challenges? Okay.
Thank you so much, Ian. And we'll now continue with Regina with Adult Basic Ed.
Thank you. So I just want to remind everybody a little bit about what we do, just in case there's somebody here that's not quite sure. So Adult Basic Ed at Pima Community College does classes. They're free to the community. Everything from literacy level all the way up to college now that we have IBEST programs. The majority of our students, whether they're in Adult Basic Ed classes or English language classes, are below the 9th grade level. This is our enrollment for the last few years. Where's the clicker? As you can see, we have held pretty steady. No great losses, no great gains, except for in a couple programs. And that's citizenship and the refugee education program. I think probably we all can figure out why that might be happening in the current environment. All right, so I was asked to talk about a challenge and how we overcame it, and then accomplishments. So we wanted to know, how could we get more adult education students, bless you, to transition to Pima College? So like I just said, most of our students are at the 9th grade level. And then you've got the college. So we were kind of like adult ed, and then way over here was the college. So how do we bridge that, and how do we get more people to transition, be college ready, and transition to Pima College? So for many of our students, what they told us and what we knew from our experience, our professional wisdom, was that the pathway was too long. If they went to an English class, and then an English class, and then a literacy class, and then a GED class, and then Pima College, we were talking, 8 years, and it's just too long. There were multiple college systems to navigate, and many times our students work, they're not used to educational system, and so having to go and run around from place to place, that could be a barrier to people, and like one too many places could just derail them. Like, oh, I gotta go to another office? Really? Okay, no, I'm out of here. The other thing, the challenge that we found when we were trying to kind of figure out how to transition more adult basic ed students into the college was that many people within the college didn't realize that adult basic ed students could qualify for financial aid. Did everybody know they could? Everybody? No? Yeah. Ability to benefit is the way that folks without a diploma can qualify for financial aid. It was taken away for a little while, but then it came back. But it came back only for special reasons, only for students who were in career pathways. So it couldn't just be for like, I don't have my GED, want to go to college and try out yoga. It had to be a career pathway program. So we have been trying to utilize ability to benefit, and we actually are leading the way in Arizona, the only community college using ability to benefit. We're a little behind some states like Washington State and other places that fully utilize ability to benefit to give access to their community. I think folks know that in Tucson, there's about 80,000 people who don't have a diploma or equivalency. That's a lot of people that could be utilizing ability to benefit. Even if you just take out the 50% that is 60 years old and doesn't care, right? We still have a lot of opportunity there. So some strategies that we came up with to do this, to take care of this issue, transitioning more students, was we read a lot about accelerating opportunities, about iBest, about achieving the dream, various programs, models, modalities, and we picked iBest because we understand that to accelerate that path that I talked about would help students. We also know that adults learn best when the information is contextualized. And so iBest also utilized that. We wanted to make sure that there were wraparound supports and navigation, and we wanted to make sure to align the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act to the Higher Ed Act to Perkins, all of them using the same definition for career pathways. So we decided on iBest. So we started iBest in 2014, and we've, there's a lot of different ways to do iBest, but it has to, the pillars of iBest are that you integrate the basic skills with the career program. It's all contextualized, it's accelerated, and then the thing that we found out when we visited Washington on a field trip was we kind of thought it was only for adult education students that would come into iBest programs. What we learned was that the iBest mode or modality, the model, works for anyone who needs basic skills support or extra support services. So we began implementing iBest programs that served both adult basic ed students and students who needed the basic skills help, so developmental ed students many times. For any students, did you? So just for the few years we've been doing this, I think Wendy Shader-Black, who's in charge of our iBest programs, asked about our completion rate. It was 14% is the completion rate from 2010. For iBest students, the completion rate is 80%. So why do we do iBest? Because of that, right? So we've done several different iBest programs. The ones that we have coming up are in industrial technology and logistics. And then what we've done, because we've learned such great things with iBest, like acceleration, contextualization, linking it to resume builders or career skills. But remember at the beginning, I said 90% of our students are under the 9th grade level. So iBest is not for that 90%, right? So what we've tried to do is take what we learned from iBest and kind of drag it into all of our classes. So we have redesigned our entire curriculum from every single class from day one, that it's contextualized, that they begin doing career exploration, that they're connecting to the college. We've been having some super career fairs. Many of you have sent people or have come yourselves to those career fairs. So we're doing more of iBest-like activity in all of our classes. So early iBest are for folks that are kind of in that 6th to 9th level, not quite college ready, but that hopefully align to the college's meta majors, which I haven't heard, like 8 or 9 of them. Do we know? 9? Okay. So we kind of have 3 really broad ones on top of the 9 in health, business, IT, and technical. Doesn't mean that we are making everybody go into those, but that we're just kind of focusing on those areas to try to help folks. The other thing we know about our students is most of them are not 18. Most of them are 24, 25, 36, and they need a little help and direction. They need, for the same reason, guided pathways is a really great idea. They need us to help them kind of get on a pathway as well. And almost all of our students come to us for one reason. Can anybody guess what it is? Get a better job. Every single one of our students almost. And I imagine it's the same for most college students, especially if they're over 25. And if it's not, even our 65-year-old nanas, they might not come for a job, but they want to be able to help their kids and their grandkids. And so in a way, them learning about these sectors, learning about job opportunities will also help their families. Our 2 early IBES are in caregiving and computer science. In fact, this morning we had our early IBES and caregivers going through a Red Cross CPR class. So that's something that will help them get a job. So I already said all students who need basic skills, help, support, and support kind of do well with iBest. So some of the things we learned. We learned that there are a lot of systems at Pima College that we didn't even know, so how were we going to explain them to our students? And so we kind of dove in and tried to figure out all of the systems at Pima College so that we could help our students. And what we kind of have figured out is that us diving in has maybe even helped the larger college, look at systems and issues. So when you look at systems, everybody benefits, not just adult basic ed students. Contextualization helps all students learn better, and that this model helps underprepared students complete a college program. Again, how many people complete iBest? 80%. Just think if we could just take 10% of our college population and make sure that they were completing at that rate. This is our vision, and it fits very nicely with guided pathways. Many states tuck adult basic ed and iBest into guided pathways. What it does is it gives access to everyone. If they come in, no matter what level, they can access any program. So it's not like you start here and then you have to do 5 different things and then you start over on the college side. It should be a seamless process. And so I think, Ian, you have strategic direction 2.5C. Pardon me? I only care about C. I care about all of them, never mind. I think our vision is to have these kinds of bridge and IBEST programs in every meta major because that's how we, give access to everyone in our community. That's it. Any questions? Yes, Ian.
So sometimes, like with business industry, it becomes a monolithic term. What are the range of skills with which students come to adult basic education, college, and career? Is there a monolithic definition, or what do you see?
So we do everything from literacy level. In our refugee program, we have to teach folks how to hold a pencil. So that level. Everything from literacy level all the way up to college level. The bulk of our students are middle school, basically. And so that's kind of our target, is how do we connect with those folks, because they're going to have hopefully the shortest journey. And when I say middle school level, it might be in only one area, not several. And so that's kind of where other programs we've developed, transition programs as well as Math Bridge, have been developed to help that. What we've learned kind of in this journey is that adult education is a great place to give access to the college and to college programs because of their desire to get jobs. And so we've also learned that many of the same things that we're able to do in practice, teaching and learning with our students also works on the credit side. And through Math Bridge and IBEST, we've really been able to connect more with the college side. And so we want to continue to do that. Yeah, Irene.
Hi, Regina. Do you want to share a little bit more about the plan for testing and assessment college-wide, coupled and trying to integrate with adult ed more?
Sure. The homework was to do a challenge and then, like your solution. And I would say I don't have a solution yet about that. But the vision that Jeff and I have around a college-wide testing division, that it's, number one, is not 5 or 6 different places doing testing, that it's one central testing division, unit, department, whatever you want to call it. Everybody reports through one supervision. They're all trained. All of our testing sites are certified so that we can proctor and make revenue, and that they're all the same, so that the student has the same experience no matter where they go. Of course, because of the right sizing that we're doing at the college, not every campus is going to have the exact same services. We'll have some bigger testing centers, maybe in one campus than others, and then so we're going to be figuring that out in the next 6 months or so, and so that's college-wide assessment and testing. Probably we'll just take it to testing, drop the assessment. That's it. Well, you guys know so much about adult ed already. Of course you wouldn't have any questions. All right. I think Dr. Thies is next.
Thank you for sharing those statistics about the 80% completion for IBEST. Oh, and Jeff has candy. Are you going to start throwing that out? Okay. So Jeff will now present and share with us some Dev Ed initiatives. Jeff.
Good afternoon. Everybody stand up, please. We don't have a break right now. We need one. Get the blood flowing a little bit. Okay, we're going to do a quick think, pair, share with a table in the middle. So we call it think, pair, table, share. I'm going to give you a topic. You're going to think to yourself for about 30 seconds, and then you're going to sit down. You're going to share your thoughts with somebody next to you, and then when that's done, the table is going to come up with one comment, solution, phrase that answers the question. Ready? Yes. Ready? Yes. Ready. Yes. Question is, what is developmental education? Go. You're thinking. Word or phrase? When you have it, go ahead and sit down and share with somebody at your table next to you. Chocolate is coming around for those that the stand-up didn't work. Okay, at this point, you should be thinking of a table comment or phrase. The table. One comment for the table. You got 30 seconds for reporting out. Okay, let's wind your conversation down because we're going to be listening to our colleagues in the back. Joe Gaw, your table, what's your phrase for what is developmental education? Back table. Closing the gap was the response. Excellent response. Moving around the back. Suzanne, your table. Bridge to college level courses. Excellent. Moving up here, we're going clockwise. Kate? One more time with the microphone so I don't have to repeat that.
Assisting students to become college ready in order to provide opportunities and access.
Excellent. Snaking through. Jan, your table. Preparation. Excellent. Aubrey. We can tell where the English majors are located.
All educational and support activities designed to bring students to college level.
Thank you. John, your group. Bridge and competencies to college level. Thank you. Brian.
It would be challenging. Classically archaic.
Classically archaic. Finally, somebody met the challenge question. Classically archaic. Moving on over. Mark? Interremediation. Halfway between where we start and where we end. Up front, Dolores? Acquiring skills for college success. And this table, Nick? Preparation. Thank you for going short. That's a lot of math folks at that table, I guess. Last but definitely not least.
Basic, stronger foundation for education.
Basic, stronger foundation for education. Thank you very much. I liked a lot of those comments. A lot of those comments do make sense to what we are trying to accomplish here at Pima Community College with respect to developmental education. The challenge that our Complete College America folks produced in 2012, 2013, they had a nice little paper that was called The Bridge to Nowhere, Ending Remediation, okay? There are essentially two schools of thoughts on what we do at the developmental education level. One is that we're just reteaching high school stuff, and the other is that we are trying to reach the student holistically. We like to feel here at Pima Community College we're trying to reach the student holistically. We're not trying to regurgitate Algebra 2, Algebra 1, reading, and English, okay? Yes, that content is in our courses, but it's not just the course. We are not teaching remediation, right? It's a wraparound holistic piece. And when you look at the National Association of Developmental Education's definition, it is treating the student holistically because they know our students are not 16. They're not 15, right? So we're working towards successfully onboarding students to be successful in whatever program that is. Now, I will admit that historically, the archaic piece that Brian so eloquently spoke about is that our pipeline to get them through developmental education has been lengthy. And our students, the majority are part-time. And our students, the majority have life happen. And when life happens, they check out. And when they check back in, they've got to repeat that math course again, right? Because when they checked out, they might have learned 2/3 of the material, but they had to check out. And our systems, archaic in that they were, would not allow necessarily a student to be able to do that, okay? So we have multiple challenges in developmental education, so I'm going to focus on what a couple of those are. And I just want to let you know ahead of time that we went into the process of the redesigned recommendations that were provided. Very similar to what Nick had said earlier. It was a huge committee when I first landed here. There was like 45 people that were going to be on the Dev Ed Council. You don't get a lot done when there's 45 people on the Dev Ed Council, right? You get a lot of talking done, which is great. It's good for me, especially to get caught up to speed on what people were thinking, but from a standpoint of actually moving the needle, we needed to break up into smaller groups, and we did that as we moved forward. As we did that, we really focused on 3 things. The first is, and these, the first one's actually from AACC's 21st Century Initiative on teaching that 21st century student, and that is we need to get rid of a culture of anecdote into a culture of evidence. That is difficult when 6 campuses are doing things differently, right? I'm sure you've all experienced that. That's a difficult thing when, well, here I've got a student that does this, and it's like, well, we can't make decisions for a student. We can take that as feedback, but we've got to be looking at evidence. Along with that evidence is the idea of scalability, okay? In some work at a previous institution through Achieving the Dream, a big piece of developmental ed reform, along with guided pathways type reform, is that you can't do little boutique things. Boutique things? Boutique things. Boutique things, all right? Those are not, if it's not scalable, you're only reaching the few. And if you're only reaching the few, you're not going to, as was mentioned earlier, move the needle. You might have it fluctuate a little bit, like when you go over a speed bump, okay? But if you really want to move the needle, you've got to do things a little differently than in the past. And little specific programs are not going to cut it. And last but not least is continuous improvement. Just because we've put something into play and we scaled it based on evidence and success and feedback from students doesn't mean we should just turn our backs on that and move on to something else, right? Or else 5 years down the line, you're going to see that program not operating as well as it should be. So those are kind of 3 of our tenets moving forward. So one of the things, and I apologize if you can't see that in the back, what does every student do when they first arrive at Pima Community College? Before they assess. And by the way, we're trying not to use the word assess anymore. Before they place, they apply, right? And at that application point, just have a laser. At the top, if the student applies, we would send them directly to Compass, regardless of why they were here. Now, the savvy ones that were only coming back and already had a bachelor's degree, they found the area in the catalog that said, no, you don't have to, you're just here for special interest, right? That's not necessarily everybody. We had a lot of students, and I still get that through the multiple measures process, where students say, well, I need to take X, do I need to take the AccuPlacer? Well, you've got a master's in engineering. No, right? We're not going to have you do that. So what we have now is our current model of placing students, their onboarding experience. And so some of these things, all of these things are fairly new. The first is the acknowledgement that we actually have programs who do not require placement. So we're working with IT so that our new application system actually directs them away from anything that has to do with placement, right? The application sends them straight to, you need to sign up for an NSO. It's time for you to get enrolled, okay? That second option down is where our multiple measures kicked in. And we started this 2 falls ago, became more active this fall, a lot more active. You're going to see the numbers here in a little bit. Do you have a GED or high school diploma that is less than or equal to 3 years? So 3 years old or less. If you do, we will take that as evidence that you are prepared to be somewhere in our system. We will look at that evidence you've already created, evidence that proves your longevity as a student, and we will use that information to put you in what we feel are the right courses. This is a national trend. This is not something we can take credit for, but we're moving forward. Question already. Are we collecting the documentation for? Yeah, when they come in, that's what the staff are doing at the campuses. Right. So, multiple measures, high school GPA, test scores, we evaluate, we circumvent the process of holds unless the student is not satisfied, because we actually do something where we'll place them into our first level of Dev Ed. So they might take Math 97, and that might actually be a better placement than if they take the AccuPlacer. But they have a choice. If they decide to say, you know what, I'm better than that, I'm ready for something else, they can go through the AccuPlacer placement test process. So one thing that's new with that, when we migrated from Compass to AccuPlacer, AccuPlacer gave us the ability to, the system does, not specifically us to Pima, the system provides you the option to route students based on background questions. So we create background questions, so students are taking most likely the applicable tests they need on the math side, AccuPlacer, RightPlacer, etc. We also had faculty take a look at the different test scores so that we're using the placement scores that most fit our students. The next one down on the left, pre-placement tutorial, is something we created 2 years ago. There was a lot of ideas about having students come to something face-to-face to teach them about the test. We realized that that's another trip to the campus. Oftentimes, after they've applied, we knew that with online growing, we needed to have something that was based in MyPima that they could do on their own. Because essentially, we were just sharing information and letting them know who and how we could help them in other ways. In that pre-placement tutorial, which they click through, answer some questions, and then submit, we have things like describing what type of test the AccuPlacer is. Has anybody taken the AccuPlacer? A few of you. It's not like a regular test, is it? It's adaptive. It's only 20 questions. It's going to move up or down based on your results. So you're going to get an answer in 20 questions, whether it's a good answer or a bad answer. What you don't have the ability to do is go back. You can't skip that and go back to the question because you're not sure. A lot of those test-taking skills you might have learned to get through high school or through college, you don't have those options on AccuPlacer. And if you go into it not knowing that, then you're setting yourself up for not doing quite as well. So the pre-placement tutorial lets them know about ADR. It reminds them again about the multiple measures. But essentially, it takes them to places where they can practice. It does not force them to practice, but it takes them to places they can practice. EdReady, the AccuPlacer web app, etc. Then from there, the students have the option, this is optional, not mandatory, to go to what we call placement prep orientation. And that is what we would have seen as the original plan to the pre-placement tutorial. It's longer, it's face-to-face, they can ask questions, we get them into Pima EdReady so they can actually prepare and get a diagnostic test to see where their skill levels are. Okay, and within that orientation, we give a lot of feedback about, oh, there's a program that doesn't need this, or my program needs what level. If I'm coming in to be a welder, an AES in welding, and I need to get to GTM 105, where do I need to place? That's not information that's readily available, so that's stuff that we discuss on an individual basis. So that gives them that face-to-face option, a little more helping them through that process to prepare for the first one or perhaps prepare for a second one. They take the test and they head to an NSO. Quickly, any questions on the placement process? This is what our students, the options are moving forward. Yes, Regina.
So not everyone has to take the AccuPlacer any longer, correct?
Correct. Not every student that comes in needs to take the AccuPlacer. The one, IBEST, right? They have to have certain scores to get in, but if they come in, they could be using multiple measures. Obviously, the ability to benefit group does need to take it, and we have a special test set up for that group. Good? Giving you a pause long enough for you to respond, cultivate your question. Moving on. So when you take a look at the left, one of our challenges is we have too many students taking DevEd based on an AccuPlacer or Compass test that in their own literature state do not use this as your only tool for placement, right? This should be an additional tool. They've always said that. It's hidden. It's kind of like some things that are in our policies and catalog, right? You don't just see it right up front. So you can see the progress we've made on the left table with respect to students at Pima when they come to test. We switched over from Compass to AccuPlacer full-time in fall 16. And I draw your attention to the bottom left in blue, fall 18. You can see that's even a lower number, about 500 lower than it was the previous year. You can see the year before that was about 1,000 lower. We credit a lot to the fall 18, lower to the table on the right. Okay? So success, table on the left. In fall 15, 84% of students that took our tests needed DevEd in at least one area. Guess what that area was? Right, majority of them math, that's correct. Look at how many of our students in fall 15 tested into developmental in all three areas. In other words, they were staring at Dev Math, Dev Read, and Dev Write. A third, 1 in every 3 that came to test with us. Right? That's a significant number that's staring at 3 different developmental courses. The last 2 years, that stayed pretty much the same, fall 17 and fall 18. The advantage is what I haven't done, which I could do, is include the figures on the right into the one on the left. Okay, so fall 18, 78% still needed one area. And again, you can probably make that assumption. The majority of those is math. And 13% still tested into all 3 areas. Keep in mind, 2 things have changed as well. Math 122 is now Math 97. Writing 100 is now Writing 90. Okay, we made that adjustment a couple of years ago when we looked at the curriculum and compared it to what was going on with K-12. The multiple measures this year, we had 608 students get placed using the multiple measures, and of that 608, 56%, over half, got placed into credit level math. If I include the co-requisites, in other words, the 97 S's, right, which really the 97s can take 142, so I would argue they should be bulked into that group as well, but for historic reasons, it's a little different. Close to 3/4, so 71% of our students, if you include them, are taking either a co-rec or their credit level math when they did their multiple measures, okay? And this is based on not only national success and statewide discussions, but we've also run pilots the previous 2 years that have showed these students that get placed using multiple measures are successful above the average class rate in those particular courses. Reading, 66%, and then writing another 58%. Nina touched on Writing 101S as a co-requisite. That model has been exemplary. 101S takes a Writing 90 student, takes those 3 credits away and says, you know what, come join us in 101. We're going to make you come to an extra 75 minutes in between your 2 Monday, Wednesday classes, or Tuesday, Thursday, and we're going to support whatever it is you need for support. And we're going to do it in smaller groups. Sean Hellman and a group of other faculty worked with U of A and the national trends to come up with 101S long before I arrived. But in the last 3 years, we've scaled it. So it's not 4 sections at DV. It's actually 20 of the 30 sections at that level across the college. So 10 sections are still Writing 90, 20 are Writing 101S. They succeed at the same rate. They get 101 credit. It transfers to U of A. There's really no reason not to send a student into 101S. Okay? 101S students are successful at the same rate in 102. Right? So we track that evidence thanks to IRPI and their folks, making sure that it's not just about being successful in 101S, because sometimes initiatives are that way. They're real great when we have them, but then when we move them forward, they struggle again. Right? That's not the case with 101S. We've followed them through to the next course as well. Questions about the placement numbers before we move on? Where's my 5-minute person? They just left. They gave me extra time. All right, so some of the things we've been working on: completion to and through transfer. And when I say transfer, I mean anything that's 100. I see GTM 105 and Business 151 and GTW 101 as transfer, because we do have BAS programs where AAS programs move on to BAS. They may not transfer as that exact same course, because a lot of times U of A South and other BAS programs may not have them, but they have that math competition, or completion. So things we've done, we talked about it earlier in the guided pathways. The Mathways work has been incredible, right? There are still states working through the Dana Center at the University of Texas that are trying to do this on a statewide scale. Okay, we don't necessarily have that same structure in the state of Arizona, so we said the heck with it, we're going to move forward with it anyway. So the math faculty working with U of A, working with our own folks, looking at the evidence, said, Math 142, what do you really need to be able to do to be successful in quantitative reasoning? Do you really need to know how to graph a quadratic and tell me where the axis of symmetry is? What do you think? No. So where is that? Well, that's in Math 97. So let's really start taking a look at aligning and scaffolding our curriculum in a way that says a Math 92 student with those skills can do everything we ask them to do in 142. Why on earth did we make them go to Math 97? Well, I can tell you, I've been in math in Arizona long enough to know because the universities made us, right? Anytime we've tried to historically move in that direction, 5, 10 years ago I'm speaking, we always ran into the U of A, ASU buzzsaw, well, if it doesn't have intermediate algebra as a prereq, we'll transfer it as elective, but they don't get it. Fortunately for us, universities are moving in that direction as well. Mathways makes sense to them, as Nina pointed out earlier. Mathways has been huge, and you may not see it, you may not hear about it, but that is going to be a very large success for our students moving forward. At the developmental lower levels, we've added the student success course, again, based on great evidence from what I consider the incubator campus when I first arrived, Desert Vista, and the history there with developmental education. Did things like pairing STU 105 with Math 92, right? And those folks were successful, and it was just a matter of how do we get this to scale, and that was one of our fortunate things. We had evidence, we scaled, and now we do continuous improvement. Well, STU 105 went away this fall and became Math 92 LB. We took everything that was great about STU 105, and we added what the students told us they missed, right? So we're pulling in the student qualitative information along with our success rates, and you'll see that a little bit later. Talked about 101X, 101S, talked about the class max and roll for writing. Obviously, if we could have developmental ed courses at 20 to 25 across the board, that would be great. Are we structurally set up to do that right now? No. We work on that as we work through each course. Professional development, a lot of faculty have been involved with NAID, AID, CRLA, AMATIC, which is our math one. Done a lot of presentations as faculty and individuals, and we've also sponsored multiple local PD events, including hosting the AID conference and providing a brain research workshop for all of our adjunct faculty, not last spring, but the spring before. Early Alert. When we first started on Early Alert, we had a homegrown system in Banner. The problem was it did not connect the faculty concern to student affairs. And part of that was because student affairs weren't connected to individual students, right? They worked with who they saw. But with proactive advising and caseload management, it makes a lot more sense to use Pima Connections Early Alert tool, which is what we went to an RFP for a couple of years ago. And we have now scaled it so all developmental ed courses, except Math 89, are using the Early Alert tool in Pima Connection. Okay, so what does the Early Alert tool do? Faculty have a roster in the system. They can go in and provide what we call a flag or a kudo at any time. The flag is automatically put into the system. The advisor, the primary advisor is what it's called in Pima Connection, are made aware of the flag, what the concern is. We provide what we call surveys at the 2-week, 4-week, and 8-week marks based on best practices and feedback from what we have, and we will continue to go through a continuous improvement. When we piloted it with about half the Dev Ed courses last spring, what we found out is we are really, really good at identifying students that are not going to succeed. Even at week 2, faculty were not asked to say, hey, who do you think is going to fail, right? The survey is, what are your concerns? Students that received flags at week 2 of a 16-week course because they were already absent, they were missing assignments, or they had a low grade on a quiz or a test or a paper. At 2 weeks, about 65% of those students were not successful in the course. And I defined we're not successful as DFW, not Dallas-Fort Worth. Hey, some of you got that. Some of you fly a little bit. All right? When they put in the 4-week progress survey, so now we're a quarter of the way through the 16-week, and we modify it for the 8-week and the 14-week. A quarter of the way through, we are now at about 75% of the students that we send a flag to are not successful in that course. Right? So it's a great piece of information, but it's also a challenge. The great piece of information is our faculty, not willingly knowing that they're doing this, are able to say that student's not going to be successful in my course. Right? They're not saying that, but by saying I'm worried about this student, so the question is what? We're doing a great job identifying them at the quarter mark. So what do we got to do? Anybody? What do we got to do? We got to figure out how to intervene. What's the intervention that's going to make a difference? Right? And that's where our partnership with Student Affairs, who oversees the other half of Pima Connection, the Connect piece, is a vital part of what we do moving forward. What's the intervention? How should I intervene? Can I use the referral tool to get them referred to a tutor? So there's a lot of great opportunities for us to take the knowledge that we have now and actually do something more supportive of our students as we move forward with proactive advising, with the referral pieces. And I'll tell you, our students love the kudos. Who doesn't like the pat on the back, right? And the reciprocal effect is then the faculty get the email back from the student that says, oh, wow, thanks. I love your class. It's so great. I'm glad you sent me this, da, da, da. So then, of course, faculty feels great, right? So it's just kind of that nice bounce back effect. A lot more to what we do than what's there, but those are some of the highlights as we move forward. The end goal is for what we call our throughput, that we want all students to be done with their first level math or writing course in a year, regardless of where they come to us, right? So our 1-year throughput, it's what we've seen on the VFA and maybe the Arizona Community College Initiative, where our fall 14 cohort, only about 15, 20% are actually getting through to a college level course and being successful in 2 years. Not only do we want that 14 to 20% to jump up dramatically, which we feel it will with a lot of the guided pathways and different programs that are going, but we also want it to be done in a year, right? Because the longer you stretch it out, the longer it becomes something that is a challenge for the students. And just as a piece of information, because this comes up all the time, our students are not forced to do their Dev Ed first. Okay? What we found when we did one of our redesign recommendations, which was a letter from the chancellor saying, congratulations, you finished Dev Ed. Half of the letters I was getting ready to send out were math folks that already had at least 45 credits of college credit. So I had to readjust the letter, right? Because I didn't want the chancellor saying, hey, now you can move on to your degree. And right? It didn't make a lot of sense for those students. As a matter of fact, I had about 20 that had just graduated in May, and I was getting ready to send them a letter, right? So just, a lot of times people think Dev Ed is like this barrier, this gateway. It's not, we don't make them do their Dev Ed first and then move on, right? So you can imagine what courses they are trying to accomplish late in the game. Now that I'm the acting Dean of Mathematics, I know what's coming. That spring semester right before graduation, hey, how can I get 3 Dev Ed courses and college algebra done this semester? Well, if we go back in time, let's have a chat. So what do we see here? We see some gaps. I mentioned it earlier, fall 15 to fall 16, you see a large increase in the math range, and that's primarily because that's when Math 122 became Math 97, so it appears as a Dev Ed course. Substantially, math was low compared to our peers, and we are very close now to Maricopa's average at their Dev Ed math. Not that it's great. By no means is 51% success rate a valuable thing in math, but considering it was 40% just 4 years ago, and the N that we're affecting, that's a huge move of the needle. You see a dip in the writing from fall 16, kind of the fall 16 is that anomaly with the N, and that's because we pulled almost everybody out of writing 90 and put them into 101S, as I mentioned earlier. So you can imagine from fall 16 to fall 17 on the success end, we pulled a lot of students that we said, we think you're ready for 101S out of 90. So they're not even taking Dev Ed, and we moved them into 101S. So that's why not only the end goes down, but that also pulls down typically your success rate as well. Continuing to move the needle, obviously we'll add fall 18 as we move forward. This is always important. My previous institution, I don't know if I've talked to Nick about this here, we get SESI and SENS data, but we don't always use it. And this is a piece of information that I've always looked at from the SENS data. The SENS, in case you're not aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, but the SENS is typically taken of students who are just entering your college, right? It's their first semester coming to the college, and they're typically in your gateway type disciplines, right? It's not a broad swath of courses. And so cohort is 50, so we've always been a little bit above the average. But I know we're trying to be premier here at Pima, and to me, premier is meeting that top performing. And based on student feedback in fall 17, we're definitely making headway towards that goal. I'm done. Questions? None? All right. See you, Michael.
We've talked about this. And it may have been in a lot of the things that you already talked about, Jeff, but developmental education online has some of the lowest success rates across the college. What are some of the ways that that can be improved that are not boutique, but really?
One challenge historically with developmental stuff online is reading level. Right? You go from a modality in face-to-face where you hear a lot, you might write a lot, some combination of reading, writing, listening. So all those skills come together to help things come together, right? Well, now put yourself in an online course. Is everybody here taking one, whether graduate school or just for fun, MOOC, something? All you do is read. You might watch and listen, right, to videos that they post, but a lot of it is based on reading. So one of the things we're looking at right now, as a matter of fact, is with a bunch of data that we got from IR, thank you, Maria/Nick, we are looking at the reading levels of those that are successful and not successful historically in both the online version of the course and the face-to-face version of the course. I know it was a challenge at a previous institution to enforce a different prerequisite based on modality. And so that'll be one of the things we have to look at moving forward. But I also know anecdotally in one of our courses at the lowest level in Dev Ed, the students that come in with a reading 91, which is kind of our highest Dev Ed reading level, that have that level are much more successful than the ones that aren't. And this is not something new, right? We've known forever in Dev Ed math that if they can't read real well, it's going to be real hard to solve application problems. It's always hard taking the English to math. Now if reading the English and getting the true meaning of what's there is difficult, you've just compounded the problem. So that's probably the most immediate piece that we're looking at. On the writing side, we've only dropped down to writing 90, which used to be writing 100. We've had a lot of success with the writing 90 course. Christine has done a great job of growing that particular course. I know she was the original SME. I don't know if she's overseeing it right now. And on the reading side, it's the same thing. We've dropped down to reading 91. So some folks, you go to NAID or you go to some of our other conferences, and they would say, why are you even doing Dev Ed online? And the answer is because we have online programs, right? And our online students don't come ready to go necessarily. And so if we're going to commit to fully online programs, then you have to offer them, just like you have to offer them library services and tutoring, you have to offer them opportunities to be prepared for success in those courses. So that's why I've always thought we have to do it. I've had conversations about how well we do it and what we can do better. But the reading piece is the one we're currently looking at specifically to math success, because that's where our greatest challenge is. Our Dev Ed math online did not see the growth that our face-to-face did when we added STU 105. As a matter of fact, it stayed pretty flat in Math 92. And so that's a good trigger that it's not the student success skills these students lack, so what's the next thing we can look at? So we're looking at more than just reading skills. We're looking at part-time. We've got a lot of evidence from IRPI that's going to help us kind of fine tune and get into that idea of predictive analytics of what student historically has been successful, what character traits do they have, and how can we support students that don't have those moving forward, kind of pinpoint our initiatives on them. Because the other issue is you make a big grand policy type statement, and now every student has to go through it, so balancing that tightrope. Morgan says, no, we're not doing that. Other questions? Katie, did you give me the 5 minutes? All right, so we're going to wrap up the way we started. Everybody stand up. We're going to do another one of these. This is my formative assessment for myself. Again, think, pair, table, share. Now the topic is, what did you learn in the last 30 minutes, 20 minutes? Or what did I not cover that you know about that you think needs to be shared with the group? Think, sit down, pair, table, share. If the answer is nothing at your table, that's okay. That is still feedback to myself. Thirty seconds. All right, here we go. We won't go through every table. So I was just informed I've got one more thing to share with you. Who wants to share? Who's volunteering? The archaic table wants to share. All right. Hold on, let me get you a mic because this will be lengthy.
Something that you didn't talk about, what you guys have been doing, was the contextualization of developmental and other educational areas to improve student success.
Thank you. In the back, here we go. One more after Susan's table, one more table willing to share.
Ken and I are going to tag team. So I was just wanting to commend Jeff for all of his work with Pima Connection Starfish and how he's got the faculty so involved with Early Alert. And we were just talking about if we approached DevEd and if we looked at it like we talked with John Howe about universal design, we were to design our systems in ways that would do what DevEd's trying to do, what ADR's trying to do, we would see so much impactful student success and retention. So we just want to give you praise for that. And then Ken wanted to as well.
I want to let you know that the reading faculty and the writing faculty have been working very tirelessly this last year in implementing a integrated reading and writing course at the lowest level. So hopefully that will go through curriculum, and we will start our pilot for that next fall. So.
Okay, thank you, Suzanne, for the nice comments. I will tell you that DevEd is kind of like a grassroots thing. There's a lot of different people, different folks at different times that have helped us put together teams to be successful in our endeavors. So I will pass that those kind words on to the group. The one piece I was asked to make sure I brought up to the group as well is that When it comes to guided pathways and developmental education, we did not build that first semester with a dev ed course blank in that fall semester in most programs, even though we know that most of our students are going to come in with some developmental needs, partially because of the co-rec, partially because of IBEST. But we do want to make sure that folks know that developmental ed courses are financial aid eligible, right? So they're not courses that a student is forced to take and then can't use financial aid for if they happen to be in that boat. What we have done is minimized almost to the point of not even worrying about the financial aid cap of 30 credits of dev ed. We don't even offer that many courses, right? There's no way, unless they take every course twice, they would even get close to that cap. So that's one of the things that it's worth sharing as well. Okay, on that note, have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you, Jeff. That was really inspiring, and really, it has gone a long way. Developmental education under Jeff's leadership has really gone a long way, so thank you for that, Jeff. And next we have Michael Amick and Jan Kempster, who will be presenting on PimaOnline.
Thank you. How you doing? It's a lot of information today. Whew. But I'm here to share with my favorite part of our institution, PimaOnline. When I arrived here 3 years ago, the institution had already done a lot of work to make a commitment in designing the reorganization of online learning that would no longer function individually by campus, but come under an umbrella known as PimaOnline. And it was really excellent that the work that was done prior to my arrival, because I could just start executing on many of those items. Our overall mission is to provide the highest quality online learning experience possible for every student. And so that really helps make some decisions quite clear. Is this a high quality learning experience for this student, yes or no? And we're still answering no sometimes, but it helps us get to the corrections that we are seeking. So when I started here, the reorganization of online learning was, in my mind anyway, I don't know those of you how you perceive it, was sort of the tip of the spear of reorganization. The presidential reorganization had happened, and then PimaOnline was really what went next. There was a lot of concern, a lot of the skies falling, and did a lot of work around that to even get that started. But what I quickly experienced was that there was a very large aspect of the faculty that were ready and wanted the structure and initiatives to move the capability of online learning forward at the institution. And so one of our challenges in fulfilling that mission was how to improve the quality of online learning at the institution. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about D2L Brightspace, our learning management system. Upon arrival, it was very walled, very limited. We were not leveraging it to its capacity as an innovative learning tool. So for example, it was to be used for online learning only, and if in your face-to-face class you wanted to utilize it, you had to go through a bureaucratic process and fill out a form and get permission from your supervisor every semester. And so what we wanted to do is open that up so that a course shell was automatically generated for every credit course offering at the institution every semester automatically. So all the faculty had to do was just go use it. That was, in order to do that, that was a click of a button after consulting with IT. We didn't just go click the button. We took 9 months to get people together, talk about impacts, realize how this could be implemented. And so that's just one of the aspects of how we shifted D2L to be more utilized across the institution for more high quality engagement. The other thing is something known as LTI integrations, learner interoperability darn, I can't remember what LTI totally stands for, but what it means is all of these third-party pieces of software that range from electronic textbooks by the publishers, many of our library materials, many other tools could be integrated directly into D2L. And the student wouldn't have to step into separate environments every time they're trying to use something. It could be right there together. We had 0 of those when I started here. We now have over 35 different items that are integrated into that system. So we have increased the usage of D2L by 33% across the college in the past 3 years, and we have broadened its complexity and leveraged it as a tool. And just this fall, the largest impact that came into place was a significant upgrade to D2L known as the Daylight upgrade. And what that allowed is, for the first time, D2L is designed to be device responsive, meaning that whatever device you're utilizing it on, it is functional and is presented to you in a functional way on that device. And this is huge because it places us in the ability to move forward in the future landscape of what learning is going to be, that people can utilize and learn our material and our courses on their device. EDUCAUSE just came out with a research information paper 2 weeks ago that highlighted the importance of being able to do your learning on whatever device you're walking around with. And some of the information that they highlighted in there is student at-risk populations are even more reliant on their singular mobile device to utilize their learning experience with. And that is a significant number of our population, that they're first-generation college students, students of color, etc. This is what they have. And so being able to accomplish that upgrade, we had a task force on it, preparing again for that for about 9 months, and a successful implementation helps position us to be able to deliver high-quality learning experiences. What else did we do? We implemented and created a quality review process. What's going on with our online courses? Who built them? How old are they? How long has that curriculum been out there? We now have a quality review process that some of you may be familiar with QM, Quality Matters. We crafted it off of that and some other review processes out there, but we are doing this in-house. It's tailored to fit some of our more exact needs, and it is less expensive in doing that. And so we have reviewed 42 courses, and what's great about that review process is it really tracks exactly what the needs are found that course should change or update. And then it also identifies the resources needed to accomplish those updates, and then documents if and how and when they are accomplished, and so that we continue to have better and better courses for our students to experience. Another sign of yes or no, are we delivering the highest quality online learning experience possible to students? In 2017, we were recognized for the Outstanding E-Learning Course of the Year by the Instructional Technology Council, which is an amazing accomplishment and affirmation that we are moving in that direction. Other items that were needed to ensure that we are improving our online course quality was the course development process. Most of you are aware of our instructional design unit, the CLT, and they've been in existence for, I believe, 13 to 14 years. And the model of 6 different campuses doing their 6 different versions of online learning created a challenging process for them to develop and create online courses, especially under Dean Kempster's leadership, really came in and did an assessment of recreating the design process to be more effective. And now that we have a newly hired APM that is steeped in course design experience, that is even being further enhanced to be more effective, have better preparation before a kickoff meeting. We didn't even have kickoff meetings until Jan came into this process. And also shortening the time frame of when it takes to start development and launch an online course, which is critical for us because we've got a whole bunch of stuff showing up that needs to be designed. Another thing that has been very critical in improving the quality of what we offer online is the development of the department head, PimaOnline department head position that's faculty-based. When I arrived, that was in a pilot mode. We had like 4 PimaOnline department heads. Now we currently have 8 to 9. And what that has allowed is a faculty person in over related subject areas, division areas, to be highly connected and highly responsive to the needs of both the student and the faculty. And they do that as a colleague to the faculty, to be able to say, hey, here's how you should be trying to do this in your online course. Or this is a common issue I've seen with other faculty, and here's how they handle that when they're in these situations with students. They're also very responsive in getting students connected to faculty when they're having issues in their course. And so when we hear the example that Hector, where'd Hector go? When we hear the example that Hector brought up, that a VA student is having problems online, that is not the high quality online experience that we want that student to have, but now we have a very clear process, system, and person that will quickly address that item. That department head is the supervisor of that adjunct that's teaching online. They will be able to work with that instructor, work with that student, get that situation for Hector and that student, most importantly, resolved quickly. So there's a lot of work that our PimaOnline department heads do to ensure quality. So they are doing reviews of the faculty, of how they're teaching with their adjuncts, and giving feedback to the full-time faculty that are teaching online. They also ensure that the course is ready each semester. So one of the things we were running into is semester would start, students would say, yeah, I'm confused. There's like dates in here from last year, and I don't know what's going on, or am I in the right spot, or what's going on? Now we do a course readiness process led by the department heads that they are tracking to ensure that the faculty that are teaching those courses have been in that course and that everything is prepared and ready from the very moment the student enters that online environment. That is critical. Online learning success lags behind our face-to-face, and some of that is because of that experience. Because if a student walks in and to the online course and it's unclear, it's confusing, there's misinformation, they can't get a hold of somebody, they are out of there. And so it's critical that from the moment that student enters that environment on day one, everything is up to date, everything is clear, and we talk about that the student knows where they are, who to ask for help, and what to do next. And that just needs to continue throughout their course experience. Gotta make sure I'm not forgetting anything here, because I think I'm the only one that followed the rules on 3 slides. So I also need a chance to correct some spelling errors before you send this out. So I use eMaze as a presentation software, and it's really beautiful, and all of you had beautiful slides, but I just freaked out yesterday and dumped it all into these 3 slides you're about to see here, so sorry about that. The next challenge that we all have, and that's increasing our enrollments. So PimaOnline is fortunate enough that we are experiencing an increase in enrollments, and we're trying to understand why. We do believe that improving the course quality helps. I believe the role of the PimaOnline department heads have helped dynamically. A lot of it also is we have created and worked on our PimaOnline department head handbook that goes over in detail all of our processes for scheduling, development of a course with a subject matter expert, and how we do all of the work to ensure we're bringing about quality in what we're going to deliver. When I arrived here, we were just in process under Kate Schmidt's leadership of implementing a new training structure for our online faculty. That is also very important in helping the students have a high quality learning experience. And so prior to that, there was a self-paced course, if you wanted to teach online, that you were placed into, and it was mostly, this is how D2L works. Now, there are 3 courses that faculty can participate in, and the first one is called Teach, How to Teach Online. The faculty is a student in a 5-week course, and it not only is going over how the learning management system is, it puts them in the role of the student. We have a optional kickoff meeting that's face-to-face for when we start this so that people can ask questions and hear about it. I try to attend those, and it's amazing because the faculty are like, well, what about this? And I don't know, and this, and what are we going to do? And at that point, I usually stand up and I say, I really want you to remember what this feels like right now. Because you guys have master's degrees and PhDs, and you're worried about what you're experiencing in your online class. Now put yourself even further into the shoes of a student that this is their first semester in college. So it really has been a great tool in helping us improve the quality of our online instructors to go through that course. I went through it as a student, and it was really good for me. Another item that we are really wondering about the impact of the creation of the Open Education Resource Pathway for our online learning and how it is impacting our enrollment. So most of you have heard the incredible excitement about 2 years ago we acquired the grant from Achieving the Dream to develop an OER degree. And again, under Jan's leadership, really delivered on the development of over 20 courses. In fact, out of 38 colleges, we were the first college to complete our pathway, which is fantastic. And we've been tracking how much money we've been saving. And I remember Lorraine about falling off her chair a year and a half ago when I told her we saved students $28,000 for the semester. And now we have reached the 1 million mark this semester. So it's just an incredible thing to be able to say to our community and say to our students that we're saving them money. And in fact, I believe our new goal should be in PimaOnline, Jan's looking at me. Our new goal should be to save students $500,000 a semester so we can have a $1 million party once a year. Anyway, what we're really wondering though now is, are students selecting cost over modality when it comes to registration? In all of the time I've been here, I've been asked a lot about, is online learning taking face-to-face enrollment? And for the first couple of years, I could confidently say no, it's not. But now, because of our OER development and online learning, I'm not sure about that. I wonder if students are like, oh, I was going to take this class face-to-face, but now I don't have to buy a $180 textbook, I'm going online. So, again, just questions we have about the enrollment that we're not sure about. I want to talk a little bit about the Pearson partnership. I'm really getting lost on time here, but so with Pearson, just a quick overview of what this is for those of you that aren't steeped in it. It is not the publishing arm of the company. It's a new, different arm of the company. They identify national employers that give professional development to their employees. In the past, those dollars are highly unstructured and highly underutilized. At the same time, these national employers have an incredibly high turnover rate. And so Pearson approaches them and says, if we could utilize those professional development dollars to provide your employees with a highly structured education program that will upskill them, help them retain in your program, and possibly help them move up in your agency. And the employers are saying, yes, you can do that. Then Pearson looks for a school that has reasonably priced tuition, that's us, has online degree programs that can be completed completely online, that's us, and they say, hey, will you partner with us on delivering this? So that is the Pearson partnership. I became the implementer of this project in June, which was a little late for us to really try to get our arms around going into fall, and we were thinking, okay, let's try to do 25 students. That quickly ended up being 64 students, which is great. And they also want this delivered in 8-week formats. So Jan and her team have been doing a lot of restructuring of courses and redesigning them from a 16-week to an 8-week delivery format. And in essence, this project is a tremendous opportunity. When I started here, I just said, you know, one of my charges was to lead the implementation of PimaOnline college-wide, and then, okay, we needed to work on that first, but I knew the other aspect of starting here was seeking out-of-state enrollments for online learning. Incredibly challenging task, because that is every single community college's goal. Well, they can take our courses from anywhere. Anyone can take our course. That's everyone's plan. And so this provides us an actual real pathway to getting out-of-state online students. First 8 weeks, we had 64 students. Part of what Pearson also gives in this process is not just a recruitment of the student. That would be a violation of our accreditation. They also have to provide a service. And that service they provide is success coaching. And so Carlos Carrillo and D2L in their area created a new role to place Pearson employees into our D2L course shells, and after our FERPA agreements were okayed and cleared, and they work with those students for success. So after the first 8 weeks, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, I'll save that. They had increased success, but one of the things that's happened with this project is it has turned our processes upside down in many areas of the institution. So it's a whole different work with financial aid, and Norma has been trying to thread the needle of keeping us compliant but yet delivering on what Pearson is asking. IT has stepped up to the plate and like blown Pearson out of the water with what they've been delivering with data and helping us keep track of these students. Student Services has, again, been so impressive of how they have really worked with this project to get these students through the pipeline and into the classes. It's been a lot of work for 64 students. But what's so critical is that it's informing us on how to make this shift institutionally, because these opportunities are showing up all over the place suddenly. This is our enrollment opportunity with employers, and it becomes especially important as we saw, if we think about being a futurist. What does that mean to be a futurist? I can't predict the future, but the future is signaled all around us. Parts of the future are already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And so we need to pay attention to those signals. Does this sound like some of the talk that you heard at EDUCAUSE? Okay. I'm stealing. Anyway, and part of that is, where do we find enrollment? And we just heard we're not going to necessarily find it from our high school students and the birth rates that we've seen. But we can find them in our employers that want to support their employees for further skills. And if we think about the future, this becomes even more important. We got a little taste of it during the economic downturn. Economic downturn happened, And depending on your degree attainment, you had a different impact from the economic downturn. If you had a master's degree and above, you had a minimal impact of losing your job from the economic downturn. The fewer degree attainment and the fewer skills you had, the higher impact you had in the economic downturn. And then let's talk about the economic upswing. The higher degree attainment that you had, the quicker you recovered and got a new job in the economic recovery. The lower attainment that you had, the harder time you had recovering and replacing your job. In fact, most of those jobs never came back. So what did you need? You needed an educational skill set. That's signaling because the wave of the future with artificial intelligence and how it is going to impact jobs is like that on steroids. And so employers seem to already be recognizing some of this. If we can get more skills to our employees, they're going to be better prepared to handle this. So we've done a tremendous amount of work for 64 students, but these opportunities are showing up a lot, and now we have good information about do's and don'ts to scale this possibly for further opportunities, not just with this national out-of-state thing, but the work that Ian Roark is doing with employers regionally. Lots of opportunities coming forward with this. Last slide. Challenge, student success. This has been the holy grail of online learning since it started. If you figure this one out, you win a giant prize from somebody in the world. Because the success in online learning has always lagged behind face-to-face. It's been closing, used to be horrific. But Pima Community College is tracking about 7.5% behind face-to-face in success rate. The average is about 9% nationwide, so we're doing well. But there have been institutions that are closing this gap, some of them down to about 2%. So it's our challenge. Some of the things that are helping us is that it is one of the chancellor's goals, so that kind of gets you motivated to try to move the needle and have this happen. We're working with connecting students to our online student advisors. We have embedded librarians and success coaches that reach out and connect to students. We have our orientation to online learning. All of these things feed into a specific aspect for what it takes for success in online learning. We talked a little bit, heard from Jeff about what's needed for success in developmental education online. But so, for example, in a presentation to faculty, how can faculty help success in online learning? There's 3 things. Number 1, engagement. Number 2, engagement. Number 3, engagement. Having faculty that are visible, present, active, responsive in online courses is the key. And so that was one of the things that needed to take place at Pima Community College when I arrived, is a redefinition of what it means to be an online instructor. Because some people defined it as, I flip the switches on and I walk away for the semester. That is an over-exaggeration. But what we've been doing is working with faculty to say the more engagement that you have, the better. And that translates to all these other folks. We have a lot of demands on our faculty. They can't do it themselves. So having an engaged librarian, having an engaged advisor, having an engaged student success coach, all of that builds relationship with that student so that when they have problems, they know who to talk to, they have resources, they have Auntie Kate to help them persist through that challenge. So going back to our Pearson pilot, first 8 weeks is over. They had student success coaches embedded in those courses. They had an 85% success rate. Now, different students, different group, different population, but still, not only did they surpass our online success rate, they surpassed our face-to-face success rate by 10%. Big affirmation of how we can scale and leverage. One other thing I wanted to talk about is the S3 pilot. It's a tool inside of Desire to Learn that is not artificial intelligence, but is predictive analytics, in that it looks at, here's what students did in previous sections that were successful and unsuccessful, and here's what students are doing right now in the current semester. And even though it may not be clear that this student's in trouble right now, they've done the same things that that student that had problems did last semester. So let's intervene now. Let's not be reactive as, oh, this student has problems now, we need to reach out to them. This student is predicted to have problems, so let's connect with them now. Let's build that relationship with them now, help them be successful. We're very interested in reporting on that at the end of the semester to see what's going to happen. We still have ongoing challenges that we are still seeking solutions for. One of them is there are divisions that have online offerings and online degrees that are not part of PimaOnline. And we have some proposals. We've started talking to some of you about how to change that. We believe we're going to be requesting additional PimaOnline department heads for those areas so that we can have like practices in online learning. I've already alerted everybody I can possibly think of that this could be an issue for us in our accreditation visit, that PimaOnline has done all of these things I've been telling you about, and we've been sharing that with everybody, but these other areas just don't have the structure or resources to follow through and implement all this. And so we want to have a similar partnership with those divisions to ensure quality review is taking place, course readiness is taking place, and all the other practices that we've talked about. We really believe that OER adoption should take place across the college, and would like to see that happen, and students flock to OER offerings because of the cost savings. It can save a student up to 30% of their educational costs at Pima Community College. And finally, we really need to develop more degree offerings that are fully online. It is already a barrier for us when we have a discussion with our regional partners like Raytheon to those with national interest. The first question they ask is what programs can be completed all online? And so the more that we have to bring to that conversation, the more attractive we are, and the more opportunity it provides to those students ultimately. Anything I'm forgetting, Jan? Any questions? Nina, Bruce.
You talked about the achievement gap between face-to-face and online classes. Well, I've been looking at the achievement gap between our Caucasian students and our Latinx students, right? And I'm most familiar with math, and there's certainly an achievement gap there when you look at passage rates. But when I looked at those same classes and the achievement gap passage rate for online classes, that gap was twice as big. What can we do to address that? That really concerns me as we grow our online programs. And
this is a very serious concern for our institution. As we have enrollment growth in online learning, we're looking at driving down our success rate, which that's not good. What I believe that we should do, and I've had a brief conversation with Hilda on this. I don't know if she's still here. Hilda? Okay. I believe that we should take a leadership position to create best practices for an HSI in online learning and really figure out what are the items that change that scenario to be more successful and be able to share that or be able to apply for that in a, is it Title III grant, maybe to help us do some of those things. Because that is very concerning to see those types of gaps, and those are some of the thoughts I've had of trying to address it.
Hi.
Norma.
So speaking of title, I'm going to talk about or just plant the seed for Title IV. Just we may not have the answer right now, but is there a prediction to know if when we may move into developing more of those online degrees when we reach the 50% mark of the programs that we offer? So of the programs that we offer, if about half of them may become online.
So Bruce, you might need to help me on this one. I believe if we already have the degree face-to-face, we are capable of developing and offering it online. And so I'm not sure I'm understanding your question.
It's that the question is, when will we be able to get to that point?
I think we already are.
In which we're actually offering the program entirely online.
Yeah. We already have permission to do that with any current degree we already offer face-to-face. Is that right? Yeah.
Okay. So that changes the way in which we are being able to issue Title IV as well.
It shouldn't, because if we have the ability to currently use Title IV for face-to-face offering, if we create that entirely online, we're okay using financial aid.
Okay.
Is that right?
50%.
So I'm really trying to understand. Your question is whether or not have we already begun to offer
Yes.
fully 100?
Or when do we see ourselves getting to that point so that we can resubmit to the Department of Education?
Okay, so I think I think, Michael, how many programs currently do we have completely 100% online that we are offering? And we had this discussion a little bit ago. Like, we only have a few, right? A couple.
It's more than a couple, but I mean, there's business, there's the AA, there's education.
Okay, so, but any of our programs that we are approved for at this point in time, we can migrate those to 100% fully online if we choose to. And at that point, we would need to notify you and let you know we were doing that so that you can do the appropriate things you need for Title IV.
Correct.
Right.
That's where I'm trying to get to.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So my question. My question is, so you touched on several things, but I want to touch on a couple things and make sure this thing doesn't fall out. So, one, have you guys did an evaluation or assessment of the open educational resources materials to see if users, particularly the students, particularly the faculty, are satisfied with the quality? And
Yes.
Okay.
That's part of the grant, actually. The grant makes us do that and report on it.
Okay. And then also, you and I have had conversations about exactly what Norma was talking about, expanding program offerings to fully online and those type of things. But we also had conversations about being able to leverage our software systems that we currently have in place. So what is the plan to maximize the use of D2L, our assessment management system, those types of things that you can actually move, because those are going to be key components to actually get to where you want to be.
So we did receive permission to hire a dedicated position to training that will help us leverage the usage and effective usage of D2L across the college, and that's not just for anybody teaching online, that's for everybody using D2L. There's also been information going out to faculty of the expectation to utilize the D2L gradebook by fall of 2019. So I'm out of time. But yes, we are doing that. We also purchased what's called subscription training in D2L. That's this awesome, robust training software in D2L that teaches you how to utilize whatever you want, just-in-time training. Like, I need to use something on the gradebook. Now you can go in, get that information, do live webinars. It tracks what you've learned. There's more questions. Do I have till 3, or when's our break start? Sorry, this says 523. Okay, sorry, I'll stop. I'll follow up with you guys individually. I was watching this clock, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Michael. For Hector, and I think Wendy, you guys had questions. Maybe come up and talk to Michael right now because we have a break until 3:15. We will start promptly at 3:15. Thank you.